just about to give a shout out to my te reo teacher from Whangarei Girls High, Whaiakura, who introduced me to this concept of critical thinking when I was at high school, and the reminder that we have to be very engaged with, you know, what's being put in front of us as far as information. And I mean, that was, not to show my age, but that was a long time ago now that I was in high school. And that concept of critical thinking has only become more important, and it will only become more important as, you know, we live in this world now where information is being pushed at us all the time. And in fact, we are incentivized not to think by the platforms that we use, the algorithms that are feeding us content all the time. They just want to keep us engaged. They want our attention. And so when we're in that passive consumption state, sometimes information will come up in our feed that we go, oh, okay, I didn't really think about that. But if you go and you know, research perhaps behind the news story or behind the claim, you can then see actually that's not right, or that's not accurate. So same deal, or especially so also when we're working with AI and using AI to help us, you know, craft our narratives or set our strategies or make decisions. We want to keep our brain active and engaged and thinking critically about what information we're giving it, what information is being received, and how we're using that information to make decisions. So I like to call it constructive skepticism, because you know, it's about having your wits about you, looking for sources that you can verify. So if there's one claim being made, can you find at least two other sources that agree with that claim or dispute that claim, and really make it an informed decision? Reminder that those sources don't have to be internet sources or digital sources. They might be a subject matter expert that you know in your network or that you trust. So with critical thinking, we think about that kind of step, or that practice and that habit of source verification. And the other thing that can really help us is keeping that open and curious mindset, particularly when we're prompting and having conversations with AI. We've kind of spent the last 20 years learning how to search, and search is all about, you know, you can put in a couple of words or a question once and it gives you your answer, it gives you results. But with generative AI like ChatGPT and Copilot and even Google's Gemini or Grok, the way that they work is they're language bots, right? So we should be thinking about those interactions as a conversation, a back and forth, so that we can really, when we get an answer that's not what we expected or is not that high quality the first time, we're not saying, oh, this is rubbish, and closing the browser. We're taking it as an opportunity to go, okay, well, I think I need to give more clarification. Maybe I need to give more context. Maybe I need to provide an example of the thing that I'm trying to create or the thing that I'm trying to do, and really assume that there will be a back and a forth when we're looking for AI to help us with something, and assume that that back and forth is an important part of that process. And this idea of, like we looked at it in the example before, asking to help draw out the story of our data, and then as a sort of broad ask, and then specifying, okay, and what does the you know, the decision maker need to know, maybe the leader need to know versus the doer, and what does the doer need to know as a result of that. And ultimately as well, looking at this habit around analyzing and evaluating those responses, really starting to think about the biases that might be present either in the data that's training it, or the information that we've given it, or our own biases. You know, confirmation bias is one that I'm guilty of. You know, I have an idea in my head, and then I look for information that supports that idea and ignores the information that doesn't. That's sort of like one I'm guilty of and aware of. But other biases that are super common in the way that we think are things like recency bias. You know, you have a favor towards the last idea that you saw or heard. So this critical thinking habit and skill is also an important part of how we think about informing and supporting our hapori, our tamariki, as they grow up in this digital world, that we can both demonstrate and practice together this idea that we can collaborate with and use technology, and also still be having conversations in real life, kanohi te kanohi, with the people that are going to be affected by those decisions. And we don't necessarily live in this space of just one answer anymore. We can all have multiple answers and multiple points of view, and access sort of proof, if you like, or data to support whatever your point of view is. So being able to have practice of critical thinking and conversation alongside that, I think is going to be even more important than it already is. So I mentioned, some of the prompts I've shared today, or the suggestions, they might be a little bit daunting, or a little bit too much if you haven't had a play with AI before. So one of the things that I sort of always suggest is to let AI teach you AI. And I don't mean that to say, let it tell you what to think. There's two very distinct roles we should be aware of when we're working with AI. One is that, we are the thought leader and AI is the thought partner. That means that we share we steer where we want it to go, and we don't abdicate our responsibility to, oh, the AI told me to do it. We really have to keep engaged that we are sort of leading this conversation. But AI systems are really great at distilling a lot of data and making it easy for us to understand. So one of the ways that I recommend is, if you're just starting to prompt, get whichever tool you're using, and I've highlighted here in yellow where you would swap it out. So, write me a prompt to use with ChatGPT based on guidance from OpenAI, which is the company that make ChatGPT. They've built these tools, so who better to advise you on the best practice of how to structure a prompt to get a really good outcome. And, if I was really just starting with ChatGPT, or just starting with one of the AI tools, I'd probably finish this prompt with something like, write me a prompt to use with ChatGPT based on prompt guidance from OpenAI to help me learn how to use AI in my day-to-day work. It can be a helpful way to just start to think about the ways that it could be helpful for you. And kind of my reminder, or my kind of call, my widow is to leave you with, is this idea of really cultivating a humble and curious mindset when it comes to our use of AI. Is going, it's constantly changing. Therefore, there's not so much this posture or this positioning of, I'm an expert in this. No one really is, because it's always changing. All the AI experts that I follow, they don't call themselves experts. They demonstrate how they're always learning, how they're asking questions. They're okay to say they don't know, but they're going to be always asking themselves, questions that are framed like, how might I use AI to help me tell my story? Which is kind of the question that we've been thinking about today, in the context of, how does that feed into or enable my success according to my definition? So I know we've kind of gone all over the place. I hope that's been helpful. I'm happy to take questions. And if you would like to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn. I share some tips and tricks over there, and share some of the things that I'm learning. That little QR code there will open up my profile. I'd love to connect and hear any questions, but also very much happy to take any of the questions if there are any in the chat from our kōrero.
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, here, mihi nui kia koe, Meg, for sharing your journey and insights with us today. That was absolutely inspiring. Even without a couple of glitches there, you really handled that like the queen you are. So, kia ora, thank you so much. That was really, I personally found some real gems in your kōrero today, and I know that our those viewing and those who watch the recording afterwards will really see the benefits to your kōrero. So I do encourage everyone to connect with Meg. She has some real gems, skills and knowledge that she can contribute to probably your space, our space. So yeah, this is where dreams are made, through Whauriki, right? So let us help you all connect. Now let's open up our Q&A section and see what, we have a couple of questions coming through. What we found is this kōrero can sometimes entice additional Q&As, questions too. So we'll just keep it going for a few minutes. And yeah, as Meg mentioned, she has linked her LinkedIn there for you. So if you have any other kōrero or questions for her outside of this webinar, feel free to connect and ask away. Okay, so what have we got here? From Shalane, what AI resources are best suited for our Pākehā Māori to use when avoiding tasks or jobs that they don't like or know too much about, for example, financial, stock taking, orders, etc.?
Yeah, so on the tool thing, I think one of the pieces of advice I have is to look at what's kind of close to you, right? Like, because there's a lot of talk about this AI tool is better than that AI tool, but it actually depends on your context. And so, for example, if you use Microsoft for running your business, then I would suggest starting with Copilot because it has a whole bunch of context already. If you use Google Workspace, then, you know, Gemini is a great place to start, again, for that context. And if you're just kind of like, Meg, I've got no preference, ChatGPT is a really great generalist. And the great thing about starting with something like ChatGPT is that you can also, you know, they all of the AI tools offer training, and their own training will give you in sort of 60 minutes a good understanding of how they work. But equally, something that's mainstream like ChatGPT or Copilot, you know, you just have to go to YouTube and you'll get in pretty quick, you know, a good understanding in a quick time. So I think starting and having a play. I also started with the things that that would hold me up, that would sit in my head for a while going like, I really should do that, you know, and I don't really know how I'm going to do it. So I'm just going to put it off. And then it gets bigger and bigger. So that was the things that I would often start with. And I love the shout out, Shalane, about like, you know, the things that you know quite well, either the processes or the topics, because then you've got confidence to sort of fact check, right? You're part of that verification process to say, actually, I don't love how that sounds. I don't think that sounds right. I'm going to, you know, push back a little bit there.
Kia ora. I assume your answer might be a little bit similar for Loretta's question here too, but she's asked what AI resources are great for the back office data entry, data capture that can be used to create efficiencies in our Pākehā.
Yeah, so I think similar, like you say, but like if it was me, I would be looking at which sort of tech are you using already? A lot of the tools are starting to bring AI, sort of build AI into them, and I would ask that question to a few of the tools like ChatGPT, like Copilot, to say, hey, I'm a business who uses this set of tools, and I want to start using AI to save time in these particular roles. What are some ways I might do that? Where should I start? Where would I get a high return on my investment?
Awesome, thank you. Tals has written, loved this, or Talia, sorry, loved Meg's authenticity and the way she uses AI while still keeping authentic in the storytelling. Do you have a preferred AI that you use?
Yeah, I swapped. I went from ChatGPT. I actually thought about it in the terms of relationships too. Like I had spent a year working with ChatGPT and going from, you know, those first interactions that were a bit awkward, and then if you're using an AI tool, one of the first things to ask is, can I set custom instructions, or can I tell you things that you will remember about me? Because when I set those custom instructions in ChatGPT, it may, and that's things like I'm a business owner in New Zealand, I'm Māori, so I want to use te reo sometimes. I am a writer and I want to write in a way that is easy to understand, you know, professional but easy to understand. I want to use small words. Once I set things like that, suddenly I was like, oh, this is great. And so I have gone on a similar journey investing in my relationship with Copilot. I've popped up there a bit of an infographic. That's from a book that I co-wrote with my business partner, Meg Smith. That's coming out next month. We wrote that for Microsoft Press. And it felt very disingenuous to be writing a book about Copilot without actually being someone who uses it all the time. So I made it a big effort to spend time in Copilot in the same way that I had in ChatGPT, rather than what I was initially doing was going, to Copilot, trying to do something that I kind of had an idea of how I wanted to do in ChatGPT, throwing my hands up and going, oh, this is rubbish, and going back to ChatGPT. I actually intentionally would take, 3 or 4 times a day, I'm going to do something in Copilot. And then through that practice, I learned, okay, these things are really great to do in Copilot because they are so much better with all the context of my emails, with all the context of my proposals I've sent, of the content I've written for my business. There are some tasks that does super well. And now that will be my go-to, but I still go to ChatGPT for more, say, like generalists and like life things. So yeah, those are my sort of 2 of choice. And then I have a play with other ones, but those are the 2 main ones I use.
Cool. That looks like it's the end of our Q&As. I do have something, I suppose, from my to query with you from my personal, life journey. I happen to own an app, and it is in development on the side. But one thing that I found while working through coding is that you've got an app doing the coding for you, whatnot, helping you create your back end of your app. I utilize another AI to help me code better and understand. I guess where I'm heading with that is do you think it's common, like people wouldn't understand that aspect of utilizing these tools to do better in this in the space that you're navigating, right? So I have one AI building, but I use another AI to help me give more efficient instructions to that AI. So it can get quite tricky and overwhelming for people, can't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's what it comes with iterative practice, with trying something. And there's a quote that I love. It says that everyone should fall in love with AI so that they can get their heart broken when it hallucinates. And that is to mean it gives you an answer that's wrong, right? And what I love about that is that, like, what you went through with your first one, probably that you were working with, you would have hit up against a limit, right? Or like it gave you code that didn't work. So then you actually, I need another AI tool to be the tester, to be looking at that. And you've kind of created this virtual team. I love that. We're seeing that as a bit of a trend in this idea that we'll have AI with specific roles. And that might look like different companies or different tools from different platforms. Or it might look like tools within the same platform that are sort of doing different functions for you. I think that main, like, kind of my call out, and it sounds like you're already doing it, is the more you use it, the more you go, okay, I've hit a limit here. What's my next solution? I certainly turn to AI to help me find that, navigate that process. What would be a good tool? And the other thing I would always keep in mind is define for yourself a framework about how you'll decide if an AI tool is a good fit for you or not, for your business, for your kaupapa. Our different kaupapa will require different rigor. Say, for example, you're working in health or mental health. You would be asking things like, how is this information used? You'd be careful not to put personal information in it. You'd be wanting to make sure that there were protections for both how the data that you put in is used, but also how those outputs are generated. So you'd be asking things like, who owns this model, who benefits from it, working out a framework for how you'd make those decisions.
That's awesome. I think another important thing for Pākehī to, I suppose, get their head around in these types of situations. So for me personally, that would have saved me thousands of dollars that I would have had to spend for people like coders or developers to do that mahi for me. And both of the app that I used to help me decode the coding app was free. So and it took maybe 2 hours of my time so to actually get over the hurdles. So I think that's really important. It can be overwhelming and it can be quite a scary new environment for many of our businesses, our paki, but that means that money that I would have maybe would have had to invest now can go towards other things in business development. So it's identifying those key ways, isn't it, like that we can really see the benefits for our Pākehī, for our teams.
Yeah, 100%. And it's giving us this equalizer in a way of, if you can have an idea, you don't have to know the ins and outs of that process or the regulations even, because you can start to use the scale that AI offers to do some of those things. And then I would just sort of keep saying, like, keep evaluating the point at which you might want to bring in a subject matter expert if it was required, depending on, you know, what you're looking to ship. But I've seen, apps and full platforms built by people who have an idea of how they want it to work, but they're not coders, but now they're able to use AI to do some of that. So it's just that practice and application, right?
Absolutely.